And welcome to one of several things where we talk with actually neurodivergent adults who are grown and neurodivergent as. And today I have a special guest with me named Candace, who is so excited to be here. And she and I recently connected, and I asked her if she would be willing to be interviewed because we really want to get information and some encouragement to the folks. So this is to close out Autism Awareness Month and also to reach the folks who don't have the money to go see professionals so that they can see some real live people who are not necessarily politicians or influencers talking about what it's actually like. So my name is Jenine Lillian. My pronouns are Jenine, they, them. I'm a neurodiversity consultant and educator, as well as a librarian, artist, and writer who lives in the Kootenays in Vancouver, or 8 hours away from Vancouver, BC. And I am going to bounce it over to Candace to do an intro, and then we'll get started with the meat of the sandwich.
Thank you. My name is Candace Progress. I grew up in Nelson, British Columbia. Um, I work at Kootenay Career Development Society in the finance department, which sounds really capable and like I've got my life together. But then I've been in my journey in my career here at KCDS, learning a lot about how to work with clients and meet them where they're at. And that resonation kind of triggered some things as I was growing and working on a path with myself and my daughter. So here we are, and I love what I do, and I love that I get to reach out and be a voice to give people that support that they might not realize that they're not going through something unique. Other people have been there.
Absolutely. You are not alone. You are not alone. And here we are. And we're in the same town. And when we met, it was like, it's like a secret club that's not very secret. So
Right?
yeah, I think that's just amazing that, you know, we discover ourselves by interacting with other people, whether they're the same or different from us, or we're getting paid to work with them or not. And so I just love so much that your sort of evolution has been in this context, and like as you strive to make things better for yourself and your family and for the folks that you're working with through your job, like it's all connected. We're all whole and complete beings no matter where we go. And I love that so much because that definitely speaks to my experience. And we can't do anything alone, right?
Exactly.
Do you have any special interests or passions or projects that really call to you that you pursue in your time off or even maybe during your work time?
So very typical ADHD. I recycle hobbies like it's a hobby. Um, New hyperfixation every month. Right now, I've learned that there is such a thing called cross stitch by numbers. It's like a paint by number, but you sew.
Whoa, okay, I need to learn this.
Thank you, Amazon, for showing me this world. But really, my special interests are really going to be rocks, not
Oh,
not crystals. I don't do crystals. I do rock science,
nice, like geology.
geology,
Ooh.
specifically volcanoes.
Ooh, my
Uh,
basalt specialist in the house.
love volcanoes. I love everything to do with it's a little section of geology called catastrophic geology.
Nice.
Um, and then of course I also have since the pandemic dabbled in nails and nail art,
Oh, yes,
like
can you show us your
finger
fanciest? Yeah,
fingernails,
yes,
which is my secondary special interest. I
that's
have
so awesome.
made that an entire identity.
And for those of you who haven't been able to see Candace's nail bling in person, it's stunning. It's noticeable. I called that out like in the first 2 seconds. I'm like, who are you?
Yes.
Let me see those. That's amazing. My special interests are birds. I love just being, around them, noticing them. I can't talk enough about them, and all my friends are like, birds.
Yeah.
But I love to watch them and observe and just be so appreciative and thankful for them because they work with so little and they work against so much. It's just very inspirational to me and very calming. And I also love to walk, especially in the morning. So they're always out there saying, hey. Also, I love to find resources and information and connect people with each other and with resources and information, which is how I became a librarian. And it served me really well in the neurodiversity sphere because it's so hard to find real and correct information, evidence-based and kind information,
Yeah.
encouragement. So that's really been a focus of what I've been up to. I wanted to ask you, Candace, if there's anything in particular, either in your own journey as an individual and or as a parent, where you really see some opportunities for some improvements we can make and some support we can give for folks to have an easier time, maybe an easier time than we have.
Um, my gosh, that is a very big question. Um, there's so many opportunities that I've experienced where looking back and knowing what I know about myself now, I'm like, why didn't my medical professionals catch this?
Yeah.
I have two parents who are both schizophrenic.
Wow.
So I endured screening for schizophrenia for 7 years. Every
Wow.
6 months, I would have to go for screening. And my
Okay.
ADHD and possible autism were never caught.
Hmm.
In that time, I had several medical professionals when I was working with my daughter, on her journey who were like, I believe your child is just like you in her behavior, but I would not say that that is because your child is typical.
That's a useless sentence.
Right? Like, can we elaborate on this? And
Yeah.
that would be the end of that conversation, and I would be left. So my daughter, we noticed signs that she had probably ADHD and maybe something else more when she was probably around age 2.
Wow.
And we just got a formal diagnosis for her in November for ADHD and possible ASD.
And she's how old now?
She is 8.5.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the gendered problem.
Yeah,
I had a similar experience in that uh, I went to untold clinicians of various kinds, especially like counseling, and also had like a psychological educational assessment and was told that I couldn't possibly be autistic because I'm so functioning. And they didn't catch the dyslexia. So it's kind of like I'm wondering what we're measuring. But again, the sad part of this is it's not uncommon. It's becoming less so, but it's a long and sad story of the herstory, right? That women are going to have a higher chance of not being believed. I don't know how it's possible to be in 2025 and yet still nobody's going to believe you if you're female. Also, that medical model tends to minimize women's symptoms, right? So to me, it harks back very much to the Victorian era hysteria, right?
yeah.
And we can't blame everything on menopause. I mean, it's a factor. Let's be honest. Women of a certain age, I'm 52 now, and I'm like 87 on the inside. So, we understand that there's a complex relationship there, but it seems to still be the case that women and girls are being turned away from being counseled, from being assessed, from even having the conversation. I spoke with someone last year who found out at 45 that they were autistic, and they took their daughter to get an assessment, who was a preteen, and they were turned away at the door, told that girls can't be autistic. This was in 2024 in Canada. So, it's a long road to hoe in general, but then to get to the other side, to get the formal support and validation is such a laborious journey. And I didn't know myself. I didn't get that until I was 51, which is how I ended up starting my business. And I'm still every day, people say, but you don't look autistic. Well, no, but what does
There,
an autistic
yeah.
person look like? This is what an autistic person looks like. Who knew?
There is no standard make
And
and model for
yeah,
autism.
exactly. And it's kind of like saying, well, you don't look like a high school graduate, or you don't look like a person who's prejudiced. I mean, there's most of what's important about a human being you can't tell by looking at them, unlike birds. So, for me, one of the very, very sort of foundational improvements I'd like to see is just believing people when they share their experiences, to say like, wow, that sound like to take it in, like that sounds really difficult. That sounds really frustrating. No wonder you're angry. No wonder you're at a loss. No wonder you're stressed about this, and to like, I thank people for sharing their stories with me because it's such a personal and vulnerable thing that a lot of people are very reluctant to do. So, like doing something like this, who knows who's going to see it and then go, oh my gosh, there's some people out there who get it.
Yeah.
Because more and more people are surrounded by lots of people who don't get it. So, just the support. Like I make this gesture constantly when I'm on Zoom. And basically the difference between failing and succeeding is support. We cannot do anything by ourselves, whether we're neurodivergent or not. You start a business, have a family, take a vacation. Like we are so interconnected and interdependent. I just don't understand how we can still have so much division and separateness that we're facilitating. And since we know that every single human brain is different, I don't get what the big deal about, being neurodivergent is. Like, we're all neurodiverse because no human brain is the same. So, celebrating that and empowering that is really a lot of what this is about. And I just so appreciate, that like, isn't it fun to be able to be like to be geeky about what we're geeky about? Like nobody, this is part of
Yeah.
the reason why I want to ask this question. Nobody asks me like, what's your special interest? And before I got my diagnosis and did a bunch of research about autists, I didn't know the term special interest. So now I get to say it's a special interest instead of I'm just a massive nerd, which, I'm fine with that too. I'm wondering if there's anything, since you had mentioned your daughter is very similar to you, is there anything that's really similar in terms of special interests or abilities, or is there anything that's really different between the two of you that you've noticed now that you've been digging into this with her?
She is so artistic, and I mean artistic in the way that she can create a vision in her mind
Oh,
and within her age group, and maybe just a little bit accelerated for her age group, she can just produce art.
yeah.
Now, I love art. I love to paint. I love to draw, but I am a copier. I cannot make something unique of my own.
Ah.
And I find that so different for us on that journey where she is so creative and artistic. And I support her in all in her endeavors, but I was the kid who I like data, I like spreadsheets, I like hard things I can reproduce multiple times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the structure, right? To
I
me
thrive
too,
in the
like
structure.
that I don't do random, right? So I do try to do random, but then I look at it and go, look, I did it random. And then if you look at it from the side, like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's so the pattern, like the structure and the pattern and the sort of routine and ritual of it, I can't like extricate. But I definitely identify with both you and she about being like uber creative, right? And a lot of curiosity that comes in with that too. But I am frustrated by the result when I try to make something look like what I think it should look like. So I like your approach where you're sort of like holding both sides of that. And also the sort of the crippling perfectionism that comes with the neurodivergent mind doesn't help us at all when we try to be creative. And so I'm glad that she has sort of a more flow and access to that as a young person. I hope that we can get more and more connected back with that because I think we had it when we were younger, right? And then we get kind of stodgy. But it is, to me, it's much more comfortable to have a structure. That's part of the reason why I work within really small forms, like I make greeting cards. And to me, that's just enough intimidating size of canvas. And and I love this idea that you mentioned, like the cross stitch by number, like that's even more structure. How nerdy is that? Thank you, whoever made that. um that's fantastic. Oh, and now I want to see her artwork. And I bet she's just creative in general, right? Like massively creative in general. Oh, the blur.
Oh,
Oh,
blur,
there.
blur. I gotta turn the blur
Oh,
off. I gotta
cool.
turn the
Is
blur
that
off.
watercolor?
It's an art, it's a project that they do in her school, and it's art cards.
Oh, nice.
She is just
That's
she
amazing.
the way she perceives the world and how she can reproduce it is just amazing to me. But then I see the creativity that I have creating spreadsheets for functionality for issues in
Yeah.
my work that people don't see answers to.
Yep.
And
Problem
so
solving.
we're both
Yeah.
very creative, but in very different structures. And I
Totally.
want her path to not have those negative voices in her head saying it's not good enough, it's not perfect.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And that, oh gosh, the inner critic, we could do a whole show, right? And the other thing is too that like I believe that everyone is creative. A lot of people are very dismissive of that, like, no, I'm not creative at all. I have a really good friend who says she has the artistic ability of a toaster. Every time I look at my toaster, I just chuckle because I picture it making like a painting or something. She is creative. She's just creative in a very different way. And so the ways that our minds problem solve and delve into information and come up with new solutions, like this is the reason why biodiversity, neurodiversity, and just diversity in general is so helpful. Because even within a family unit or a community group, or a workplace, we need all these different perspectives to be able to get really amazing results and sustainable results that are actually improvements, right? So I
Yeah.
just think that's amazing that you're able to make that connection between your spreadsheet work and, the sort of craft and art creativity piece, because it is all creativity and it's
Mhm.
also engagement.
And I think it's so important for us too to represent creativity in all its forms because people do think when you say, are you creative? They immediately think, can you produce a piece of artwork?
Yeah.
But
Can
that's
you make
not
a
what
Monet? Or
creates,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's not what it is. It's so encompassing.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. So here we go. We've just discovered one. This is a new one that I didn't know what I was going to learn today. Maybe one of the things we can do, one of the steps we can take to be more inclusive is to have a greater, more broad definition of creativity and to share with each other what those things are. I have lots of friends who are musically creative and, but terrible in the kitchen, or great in the kitchen and terrible on the piano, right? And so all of these things, whether it's movement or math, anything in between, we're all creative. And I definitely feel like my neurodivergent mind is the very heart and seat of my creativity and my curiosity, and that they're just completely unable to be separated, right? Otherwise, I would
Yeah.
just no longer be me. I feel very strongly about that. One of the things I wanted to ask you is if you had any words of encouragement with anyone who might identify with your experiences or that of your daughters or your parenting after they listen to this interview with us today, because it is so difficult and we do get so many exterior and interior negative messages. So any words of encouragement or, hopefulness that you'd like to share?
I feel really strongly that when we can support each other and build those communities that people don't have to be alone. I felt so alone for so much of my life and didn't understand why my brain just wasn't the same as other people. But
Hmm.
I was also very isolated. I grew up in a very isolated part of the Kootenays when I was growing up in Nelson. We
Hmm.
only had about 7,000 people, and I lived in a rural area
Yeah.
where the walking distance between houses was
Hmm.
not sustainable to maintain that. Like, and I was very isolated. I was raised by my grandparents who had a very different mindset than even parents do these days.
Hmm.
But we are not alone. And there
Yeah.
are people out there who are just like us who are gonna resonate with our stories.
Hmm.
We just have to keep looking for them.
Oh, thank you for that. I think that's absolutely the case. And, one of the things that I think I mentioned when we were in a workshop together, you and I, is that I am out and proud, and it's not comfortable for me. I don't love it. It gets me some flack a lot. And sometimes I just want to be a person and be anonymous and not have to educate all the time about what an autistic person looks like, et cetera, right? However, I've chosen this sort of advocate stance. And part of the reason I've done it is because there are so many other people who've come before me who have instilled in me that this is the right choice for me, and that it's part of my purpose and part of my path. Like if I wasn't constantly having these difficult conversations and talking about these things and really digging in the dirt with people, I don't think I'd be able to do the same type of work that I'm doing, right? And get the same, like having these really powerful conversations. And, I cry, they cry. Like there's
Yeah.
just a lot of bonding and a lot of just like, oh, okay, we're gonna be okay, we're gonna make it. And I don't think I'd be able, like again, I don't think I'd be able to separate those two. So yes, it's hard and it's also important. And the other thing too that I love what you're saying is like, basically like shine your light so that people can find you. And you did that with me. And boy, it was just a
Yeah.
fireworks display in the lobby. And I just really appreciate that because, I feel like there'd be we're all introverts, but I think there'd be such a party when we sat and like found each other, like, oh my God, we're not exactly the same, but we get it. And so I just really appreciate that because like you also, I felt very alone and from a very different generation. And I'm very glad to be in this era and to be in this country. And in times past, I probably would have been institutionalized. I've certainly been told I'm unemployable, and that I'm a problem. I need to be different. And how wonderful is it to be turning away from that messaging? And like with your daughter, you're never, someone else might say that to her, society might say that to her, but you will never say that to her. And what a profound this, right? That is like, that's
Yeah.
just amazing.
And just my journey to like, I am so lucky to have ended up where I did in my employment because I've had so many amazing employers. Really, I've been so fortunate to have really amazing employers and have really, really great working relationships with a lot of coworkers.
That's
But I
awesome.
don't think any of those places that I've worked before would come with me on this journey and
Mm,
have those conversations saying, "Hey, you know what? I just found out from my daughter's assessment that I might be autistic."
yeah.
That not just that I might be autistic, I wasn't paying for an assessment, so she can't give me
Ah,
a formal, yes, you have ADHD. I suspect you have autism, but I don't have that piece of paper,
right.
so I can't tell you. Um, but to just be able to have those conversations with my human resources department and
Yeah.
my managers,
Yeah.
I can't think of a place that I've worked where that would be as openly embraced.
Yeah, and like not a problem. Like, what do you need? We want you to succeed, or what does that, or even asking questions like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. You're the first person to say that to me, or
Yeah.
it's that psychological safety foundation, without fear of retribution, without worry of losing your job or being handed dumbed down tasks, like you were sharing with me like the kind of big deal tasks that you have. And I just think that's amazing because, of course, you should have those. Like,
Yeah.
we are the ones who are super reliable and capable. We want to dig in the dirt, right, on these issues. And like, I want challenging work, I want to be a contributor. And so being judged by not fitting in hasn't worked for me in the past, which is how I ended up starting my own business. But just to even just hear about your experience as I have before and a little bit today, like, man, that's just incredible. It's like, wow, yes, these places exist, and there are more and more of these places, and we're doing this work to get us to a place where this is more normal, to be more accepted as whole and complete beings, whether you have a disability or not.
Hmm.
Invisible, visible, it doesn't matter, right? To have this idea that we have to have formal accommodations and, like just meet people, as you say, you're meeting your clients where they are at and really like celebrating and empowering. Let's all bring the things that we're really good at and ask each other for support for the things that we're weak on, right?
And even more here in what I do because I have such a gift at the creativity on the spreadsheets and the creating solving problems that other people don't really know are problems yet has been such a huge um I get more tasks. I don't get those big tasks taken away. I get more of them and more opportunities to develop
Yeah.
those processes, and it's such a rewarding place to be in my life.
That's so wonderful. And like I love that. Like when people ask me, about a neurodivergent question or something, if I don't know, I like to say I don't know, but I'll research it. And then, it's like a puzzle to solve. It's not a problem to resolve, right? And
Yeah.
and I love that, that you're able to take those opportunities and grow your skills and really like shine in this domain rather than like, oh, we've got Candace and we're going to put Candace in this very narrow band, right? Of experience because we all have gifts and what a wonderful thing to be asked to share those. And I just love so much that our paths cross and I can't imagine what we're going to create next, but I know it's going to be something. And I really appreciate you making time to join me today. And this is going to go on YouTube to close out Autism Awareness Month. Also, I wanted to ask you in our parting thoughts, Candace, what next steps would you like folks to take after hearing your interview today?
Uh, it's a big ask
That's
and I
okay.
get it. But the self-advocacy, which is the hardest thing for neurodivergence to do, but you have to. No one else can fight that battle for you.
It's
And
true.
to go through all of the things that I went through from my 20s to now I'm 42, it didn't have to be so hard if I had been a voice for myself the way I'm advocating for my child.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's so hard, right? And to have some champions along the way, right? Like for me, I had some really amazing teachers and counselors who really instilled in me this you are more than your experiences, right?
Yeah.
You are more than the sad story that you came from, the difficult beginnings. And now to be able to circle back with them and say, I'm growed and guess what I just discovered? Like it's sad and it's wonderful, but it's all beautiful and it's the truth of my life.
Hmm.
And so, now everybody's looking, going, oh yeah, this is starting like looking back at Jenine at 15 years old, like, oh man, what a game changer it would have been to have your daughter's experience now, right? Getting that advocacy, getting that validation and those supports. But yeah, I feel like none of what we endure has to be so difficult, but at the same time, it kind of has to because we're not quite at the point where people are ready to understand. And we ourselves, I think, have some difficulty when we get that information because it does have such negative connotations and it's so hard to get the information. So I'm just glad that you have your daughter to go on this journey even further
Hmm.
with. And I can't imagine how her having all of this support now, I know it took a long time, but thinking about her through her schooling and her young adulthood and her adult life, like I'm gonna watch that girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Candace.
Thank
All
you so
right.
much,
Well,
Janine.
I'm going to close our recording, but don't leave. And anyone who's watching or listening to this, please absolutely feel free to reach out to me. I'll put some notes in the episode. I do not have the comments on because there's a lot of negative comments on the internet if you haven't noticed. So send me some good stuff and I will relay it to Candace if you have any questions or comments for her.